What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens episode review. Today, guys, we are going to be going over episode 60 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. I'm excited, as always, to get into these episode reviews with you guys, so without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's jump right into it. So generally speaking, what were my thoughts on episode 60 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens? Well, I thought the episode was pretty good. I would probably say that this is one of the best episodes of this arc. I don't know if this is the best episode of the arc because I will say this, I've been fighting between episode 60 and episode 58 as the best episode of this arc. I mean, episode 58 was just a pretty good episode. I mean, you had all the dialogue that was going on, which I thought was very good, and you had Yuo's introduction into dueling, and even him pulling out the shocking fusion and defeating Yuga, and then you have episode 60, which was more a plot episode more than anything, but I thought it was still a very good episode nonetheless, and that's honestly a good thing because of what the last episode was, just a recap episode, which, by the way, I want to kind of bring that up real quick. So in regards to this channel and recap episodes, since I haven't really explained it at all, since I haven't actually had to face that scenario yet, or at least I don't remember if I've had to. Maybe when I first started this channel with a Vrains review, I think I did a recap episode review, but I cannot remember. But going forward in regards to doing episode reviews in general, when it comes to recap episodes, I am more than likely not going to be doing a review on an episode that is just a recap. I just don't think it's really worth doing an episode review on a recap when it's just essentially recapping the entire show in general, but I've been doing reviews on it. I've been following the show in general, so I really feel like if you guys have been watching the channel and you've been watching all the reviews and been watching Sevens in general, I just feel like doing a review on a recap episode just makes no sense. So unless you guys think otherwise, if you guys think I should be doing reviews on recaps, then I will do it. But for right now, I do not have any plans on doing episode reviews for recaps. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, just in case anyone was confused on why I didn't do a review for episode 59. It wasn't because I was having any problems, since I've been having a lot of problems since the month of July, but this one was intentional. I did not want to do an episode 59 review for the last episode because I just think it wasn't worth it. Also, another thing to kind of quickly mention, and it has to do in regards to this arc, is that this arc is going to be extended from 13 episodes to 15 episodes. We got this announcement a couple of days ago. I haven't done a video on it since I wanted to do it in the reviews, since that's where it's going to be more focused on. So I'm going to give a quick thought on that real quick. So this arc going from 13 episodes to 15 episodes. Me personally, I wish it was a little bit longer because I've been advocating for more length arcs than the 13 episode arcs that we've got. I've had such a big problem with them. Hell, I've done an entire video on the whole topic of 13 episode arcs and how I really don't think they're really good for a show like Yu-Gi-Oh! 7. So the fact that they're willing to do it, I like. I don't like the fact that they're only doing it by 2 episodes, but maybe it's just me being a little bit greedy. I do hope with them doing this that they will be more willing to further into the show of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, go down the routes of doing longer episode arcs, and not after this arc going back to 13 episode arcs. I really hope they don't do that, but we'll have to wait and see. I feel like the reason they're even doing 15 episode arcs for this arc in particular is because we did have this plot episode, and then we had a recap episode, and with those in mind, since those were 2 episodes that didn't affect the villains that much, really, I feel like we kind of needed it extended by a couple of more episodes, because I feel like you're not going to really be able to do that much if you don't add a couple extra episodes to this arc without it being extremely rushed. So I think it was very smart for Bridge to extend it to 2 episodes. I just hope going forward it's more than that. Me personally, I would like if they doubled the episode lengths from 13 episodes to 26 episodes. I would be fine with 20 episodes. That would probably be the lowest I would go. I think 19 and 18 is stretching it a little bit, but I feel like 15 or 13 through 17, I just think is still way too short. I would even say 18 and 19 is still a little too short. I would say 20 to 26, I think is perfect for what can fit with Sevens. So I hope going forward they decide to go towards a little bit longer arcs than the 13 episode arcs we've been getting, but we'll have to wait and see. But now that I've gotten all of that extra information out of the way, let's actually get into the review. I do apologize for that. I just wanted to kind of mention those two things for anyone that asked me down in the comments, because I feel like that would have been mentioned in the comments about the arc getting extended to 2 episodes to being a 15 episode arc. I do know about it, and I did get my thoughts on it. So I just wanted to kind of quickly do that. But getting into the actual episode, we're going to start where we have Yugioh and the group having their own dialogue. So Yugioh is working on his hovercraft right now, and everyone looks at him, and everyone is very concerned for him right now because of what happened back in episode 58. You know, Yugioh just lost his duel against Yugioh, and he lost the duel using his Maximum Monster, one of the strongest tools in their arsenal. I mean, the only person that has beaten the Maximum in the show so far has been Rook, which, mind you, is the only character in this show to have not lost a duel yet. So it took the strongest character in this show to actually beat a Maximum Monster. Now you have Yugioh with his Fusion Monster was able to beat over Yugioh's Maximum and be able to win against him in that duel. So with that in mind, everyone is very concerned about him because it just makes it seem like Yugioh has been stressing out about the whole scenario, because now they have to figure out how to deal with fusions, because clearly the Maximums are not even enough to be able to beat over this fusion. Now they have to find a way to beat it, and they're looking at Yugioh. He seems very distressed. You even see him turn his head, and he just looks dead inside. Like, my boy Yugioh, like, has just been going through it. Well, is what they make you think, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Yugioh tells the group that they're gonna go and confront Yugioh, and everyone thinks that Yugioh has just lost his absolute mind. And essentially, they all end up going except for Swirly, who ends up staying behind to go to the library to see if maybe he can find something in the library that can maybe deal with fusion. So we kind of now have our A and B plot. Our A plot being more towards Yugioh confronting Yugioh, and then we have our B plot of Swirly going into the library to try to find how to stop fusions. And we'll start off with Swirly. So Swirly's walking through the library. He's trying to find a book that can maybe help with that. And this is where this episode gets very interesting. So Swirly's walking down the library, and he runs into this kid and gets knocked down to the floor, and a book lands on top of him, and then a character talks to him, apologizes, says he was going to go meet up with his friend, tells him that if he could, can he put the book back, and runs off. But what's very interesting is the character that we saw in this episode, because if you did not recognize this character is the protagonist of the Yugioh Battle Royale video game, the new 3DS game that's going to be coming out. In fact, it actually should be out by the time of this recording, actually. So that's actually pretty cool that he made his little cameo into this show, which I really do like, because what's really cool about this, and this is also in regards to the OCG structures as well, because they actually did a similar thing as well. They're really giving light to these Yugioh protagonists, because Sevens showed off the Yugioh Battle Royale protagonist, and OCG structures showed off the Yugioh Card Battle protagonist. So they're giving some light to these protagonists who I feel like are really underutilized a little bit, since they don't have their own anime or manga series. Not a lot of people are going to remember these characters unless you specifically play the game. So I really did like that they actually had a little bit of a cool cameo for this character. Now, was it to promote the game Yugioh Battle Royale? Absolutely. I mean, why would this character appear at any other time? And what are the odds that this character was going to appear just a couple of days away from the release of Yugioh Battle Royale? And in Japan. So obviously this was a cameo to kind of promote the game, but it's still cool nonetheless to actually see this character in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, and I kind of hope we do see him later down the line, kind of how we do see the Psycho card battle protagonist a little bit later on in OCG structures, but more than likely, I doubt that. I really don't think they're going to do it, in my opinion, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he'll be prevalent at some point. Maybe we'll get a duel between the Psycho card battle protagonist and Yuga. I think that would be really cool, but Swirly ends up finding the book, which is titled Sevens, which is pretty interesting, and this is where we get a little bit of a better understanding of the scene that we got at the very beginning of the episode. So we see at the beginning of the episode, we see this old man talking to this kid whose name is Magician, which is very interesting, and he tells him that he needs to set off on a mission to find the other users of sevens, which is a pretty interesting concept. And that's when he says, like, when all the sevens are gathered together, you know, and it was a certain part of the moon. I can't really remember the entire thing that the old man said, but like a hero would like come and be able to stop an even bigger threat. That's basic. I'm kind of paraphrasing it right now because I really don't remember the exact thing that the old man said, but basically paraphrasing it is that when Magician gets all the users of sevens, then the hero is going to be able to use the sevens to be able to defeat the big threat. That's basically what the old man's talking about. I know that was a very poor explanation of how that story ended up going, but again, I'm just paraphrasing here because I don't really remember the exact thing the guy said. And we see Swirly reading through this book, and we also see Mimi in this episode as well, who is now a librarian because of her losing her spot at Goa Corporations of being the president. And she ends up going up to Swirly and says, hey, you know what? This book might be able to get me back to the tops. Can I please have the book? Even offering him 3 like card looking things, which I don't know what the heck Mimi was doing when she showed Swirly those cards, because the way it was just presented to us, I mean, he showed her 3 cards of girls on them and was willing to give it to a kid. And remember, Mimi is like in her 30s right now, and she's giving a young kid 3 cards that have girls on the picture of it. Like, oh dear, Mimi, what in the world are you doing, my dude? Like, come on. And Swirly doesn't know what the heck she's doing, and Mimi decides that we're gonna settle this with a duel. If I beat you, I get the book. If you beat me, you get the book. Basically, that's what the duel is gonna be about. But we'll get into the duel a little bit later. We're going to actually go into the conversations we got with the Goa siblings and then Yuga and Yuo's interaction and all that stuff. So the first scene that we get with the Goa siblings, we get Yuka and Yuro at the ramen restaurant, and we actually see Yuro without his mask for the first time, which is pretty interesting. He has been the only character in this entire show so far of the Goha presence to not actually show his face. Yuka, Euron, Eugene even, and Yuo had all shown their masks off, and that was all the way back in episode 55, you know, when they were having that conversation about Yuo losing his position, and, you know, you had Eugene actually running out of the aircraft, and when he landed into the water, he took off his mask, talking about the soul of the sea, and then I believe, Euron was eating food, Yuka was taking a drink, and I think Yuo just took off his mask to take off his mask. And now Yuro has finally took off his mask. Is it really that important? No, but I really do like the fact that they're more willing to take off the mask. I really do like the design of these characters, and I really do like when they have their masks off. I feel like you can give more expression with them not having the mask on. So I really do like the fact that we finally got to see Yuro without the mask, but he has a brief conversation with Yuka. Yuka right now is a little bit too focused on eating the ramen at the ramen shop, which I don't know what is with the girls in this show. it just seems like three of the girls just love to eat. Roman, Yuka, and even Botan, which was the character back from episode 59, the member of Django's group, and they just seem to really like to eat food a lot. I mean, Yuka was just slurping down on those bowls of ramen, like holy crap, but you just had that scene, nothing much really happened. You even have a conversation with Euron and Yugioh, and Euron actually goes to you and says, it seems like you don't care what happens to us. The only thing it seems like you care about is you being the only president. So Euron calls Yugioh out, and instead of Yugioh saying, no, I don't know what you're talking about, he basically just confirms that, yeah, I want you to actually lose your position as a Gohan president. I want to be the only one remaining. Now, he didn't bluntly say that, but he was implying that's what he wanted to do. And Euron was surprised by this, and Euron also learns how he got fusion. And what's interesting is that that's where we get in the conversation with Euron and Yugioh, as Euron confronts Yugioh when he gets on the ship and they end up having a confrontation with each other. Euron questions, why are you on this ship? You're not a Gohan president anymore. Not really much is said about that, but then Euron tells Yugioh where he got the fusion card, because Yugioh wanted to find it out himself, like how he got this fusion card, because no one knew about it. I mean, they were a little bit speculative about it because he seemed to spend a lot of his time in his lab, but they didn't know that he was going in there to create a fusion card to be able to go up against Yuga's group. They did not know about that. So that's where you kind of got that whole dynamic, and that's a little bit important later on. But this is when we get into the dialogue between Yuga and Yugioh, and Yugioh thinks that Yuga is just deeply depressed right now because of what happened, and Yugioh is just like tormenting Yuga with this, and he even separates the group because apparently the group, when they crash into the actual aircraft, which, by the way, Yuga crashed his aircraft into the Sixth Cross airship. Like, my man does anything necessary to get what he needs to get to. And in this case, he was trying to get to Yugioh, so he's willing to put a hole in this airship to get to Yugioh. And when they end up getting into the building, they get out of the aircraft, and we find out he's on Yuka's baseball field. Remember back in episode 56 when Yuka dueled Roman in that stadium? Apparently it's in the actual ship of the Gohan airship. And, they end up getting bombarded by baseballs. Luke is actually holding a pot that Roman brought with them to kind of make it as like kind of an apology gift in a way, which was the same it was curry, not ramen, that she used to basically blow up Roa's apartment full of curry, and everyone is terrified by this, and Rook has to try to dodge all the balls while holding it. You have Gakuto where he gets like a glove to just catch all the balls, and then you have Roman with her baseball bat just hitting all the balls back, and then this is just how insane Yuga is at this moment right now, because all these balls are flying right at him, but you know what he does? Instead of dodges it, he just walks very slowly straight forward, and everyone gets concerned. They run right after Yuga to try to catch up with them, but they fall down a hole and they end up getting separated. And then that's when we get into the whole conversation of Yugioh and Yuga, and you see Yu kind of tormenting him a little bit about the whole situation. And even Yuga asks, were you the one that created fusion? And you know what Yugioh's response was? No. Apparently Yugioh was not the one to create fusion, which I guess they kind of did hint at a little bit, because they specifically said when Yugioh had that card in the pod, all they were trying to do was to see if it was legal for rush duels. They never said specifically that they created the card. So that's very interesting. So all Yugioh was doing during that entire thing was to make sure the card could be used in a duel. Does not mean he created the card, which is very interesting. And then, you still have Yugioh kind of tempting him a little bit, since he's the only one with the fusion card. And then this is when we see things a little bit weird, as we see Yuga just very excited out of nowhere. And I'm watching the episode and I'm very confused by this, but apparently Yuga was never depressed by the whole situation. And the reason why he was kind of like this, where his eyes just seemed like he was dead inside, that was because, yeah, he was thinking about it, but not in a necessarily a bad way. You know, he was working on the aircraft all night and thinking about fusions being in Rush Duel so much that he ended up getting tired, and that's why he just looked so dead inside, was because in all reality he was actually tired, because he even tells Yugioh that he thinks fusion is a great thing because it's a way to further extend the game of Rush Duels, which I feel like any fan can agree on with any mechanic, whether it's fusion or any new mechanic, because it adds a new element to the game and thinks of more strategies. It's the same way in the OCG and the TCG, you know, when we got synchros for the first time, Xyz for the first time, pendulums for the first time, links for the first time, like when those cards came to the card game, and even for Rush Duels, when Maximums came to the game for the first time, like it brought out so much potential and new strategies that you originally could not do until these cards were created. So Yuga's on board with this, and this pisses off Yugioh a little bit. You see him grin a little bit, and then goes after Yuga and the crew. Looks like they want to put him not in a guillotine, but it's in one of those like capsules, which would send them up to space, and they basically would die in space because of no like air in space. And that's what I really do love about Yugioh. And I want to kind of quickly go into that real quick, because I think Yugioh is starting to become one of my favorite characters, because he is honestly the first character that has felt like a villain. One of my biggest gripes with Yugioh Sevens right now has been is that I feel like we haven't really had a good villain, and I mean an actual villain. Like, yeah, we had good antagonists like Neil and Asana and those characters, but my problems with them is that they just end up joining the group later on, and they weren't really evil. They weren't having malicious thoughts. I mean, yeah, like Asana wanted to get rid of Rush Duels, but that was because of the fact that Goha was willing to help them fix the parts of their machinery if they got rid of Rush Duels. So they didn't have a malicious intent. And kind of Neil was the same way. I feel like Neil was the closest to a good villain, but I don't know, I just feel like he really never fit that role that much. But Yugioh has easily been the best villain we have had so far. The only thing I hope going forward is that he just doesn't join the group later on, or if he does, kind of keep a sadistic side to him a little bit, not like to the point of like he wants to kill people. That's not what I'm saying at all, because I'm sorry, but Yugioh essentially wanted to kill Yuga in the group. That's basically what that was. But maybe do something like that, I think, would be very interesting. But, you know, he gets a little bit mad at that. He chases after the group, and then we see the door behind them just crash, and Kaizo comes out of there, and we just see Tiger right there ready to get into the fight as well. And then you even have her two assistants call her president. This pisses off Tiger a little bit, and then she goes on a rampage, and it seemed like she was just gonna blow up the entire ship. That's not what ends up happening, but even Yugioh could not stop her. He sent that machinery that I was talking about earlier to go after Tiger, does not work, gets knocked back, traps Kaizo in it, and it shoots Kaizo up to space. And you even have at the end of the episode kind of like a fourth wall break where he says like, oh, is this gonna happen again where I'm just not gonna be like involved with the plot? Well, it's time for me to take a vacation. Like, if that wasn't a fourth wall break, I don't know what was. So you had that moment, which Kaizo deserved it. I am sorry. I don't like Kaizo, so I'm very glad they did that scene. That was probably one of my favorite moments in this episode because I just thought it was hilarious. But then Yuga and the crew was able to escape. And by the way, the reason that Tiger was able to get there was because of Yugioh. So they were eventually able to get off the ship, and then that's when they get back down on the ground, and then they'll have a talk with Yugioh. But we'll get into that in just a second, because Real quick, I want to just do a brief little discussion on the duel between Swirly and Mimi and just quickly give my thoughts on it, which won't be that long of a discussion since most of this duel was off screen, but I do want to give my opinion on what we did actually see from this duel. I thought the duel, for what we saw, it was fine. I think what really held this duel up, in my opinion, was just all the old classic cards that we saw in Swirly's deck. Because of him not having a deck, he ended up using a rental deck from the library, and with that, we ended up seeing Swirly use cards like, Baby Dragon, we saw Gazelle, we saw Celtic Guardian, we saw Feral Imp, and the two biggest ones, Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, which was pretty cool. And we even had a little interaction with Swirly and Mimi, with Swirly saying, like, I need to win this duel for Dark Magician Girl, because if I don't win this duel, it's gonna make her sad, which, if that doesn't sound like a line that Show from GX would say, I don't know what is. If anyone was a fan of GX, you remember that Cyrus, or Show, whatever you want to call him, he was in love with Dark Magician Girl. So that whole scene right there where he was kind of talking about, I'm doing this for Dark Magician Girl, even losing the point of why he was actually dueling to help Yugioh and the crew, was just hilarious to me. I really did like that scene a lot. But other than that, that was really much to talk about the duel. We didn't really see much from Mimi's side. We only saw her ace and a field spell, and that was it. And also, we knew she summoned her ace from the graveyard, and essentially that was it for the duel. There wasn't really much else that we saw in this duel. So now let's get into the final parts of this episode. So Yugioh and the crew have a discussion with Yugioh before Swirly and Mimi, who ends up tagging along after the duel, kind of talk about the book and all that stuff, which we'll get into in just a second. But they have a brief conversation with Yugioh, and we finally learn about what Yugioh was talking about with Euron, as Euron told Yugioh how Yugioh, I know it's a little bit confusing since there are a lot of U names, they told us how Yugioh was able to obtain fusion, because, like I mentioned earlier, he did not create fusion, so that had to imply that he got fusion from somewhere else. Well, in this episode, we learned that Yugioh got the fusion card from debris that ended up hitting their ship back when they were at the Goha Space Elementary School. So this debris of meteors and stuff like that from space are holding fusion cards, which is really weird, which this isn't the first time that we've seen space theme type of stuff in the Yu-Gi-Oh animes before. I mean, I can think of the variants from Zexal, Light of Destruction, Yubel, the Neospatians from GX. Like, this isn't the first time that we've seen some like space theme or something happening in space that caused something in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. So we did learn about how Yugioh obtained fusion, so that was pretty interesting. But after that, he ends up leaving, and then that's when Swirly and Mimi get back to the laboratory, and then they kind of talk about the book. Now, what's interesting about the book is that it talks about the Sevens Road characters, like Sevens Road Magician, Sevens Road Witch, Warlock, Mage, Wiz, which was the newest one we saw. All of those cards are from this book, and what was implied to us was that Otis created the Sevens Road monsters from this book, which is actually pretty cool that we kind of learned a little bit of lore of the Sevens Road monster, which was pretty cool. I really did like we learned a little bit of lore on it, but we also did learn that a couple of pages from this book have also been torn out. As Swirly was flipping through the book, we did notice that a couple of pages were missing, with one of the pages showing what I'm going to assume is Sevens Road Magician just standing on what looks like just a war ended up happening. I mean, we even saw like people lying on the floor, assumingly dead because it was a war, so that was pretty interesting as well. But the main focus has to go with the ripping of the pages. Why are some of the pages ripped out of this book? And I guess what also was a question as well is, who ripped the pages out of this book? Now, a lot of speculation is going towards Otis right now, because he had to have had this book in order to create the Sevens Road Monsters. So the speculation that's going on right now is that Otis got the book, created the Sevens Road Monsters, noticed something very interesting in the story, ripped the pages out of the book, and then returned the book back to the library, which is very interesting because, again, that asks that question of why did he rip out the pages of this book? What is so important with these pages that he felt the need to rip the pages out of? So that is very interesting to really think about. So with that being said, there wasn't really much else to talk about. You did have like a weird kind of like interaction with Yugioh and Rook at the end of the episode, as well as they were trying to like figure out all that was going on right now, you know, with the pages missing and even the stuff with Yugioh. It's just a lot of stuff ended up happening in this episode. But with that being said, guys, I've talked long enough. There was just a lot to talk about in this episode. Plus, I mentioned the stuff about how I'm going to be doing recaps going forward, and even talking about the arc being extended to 2 more episodes. So with that being said, I think this is a good place to end it off this review. So with that being said, that is going to be it for this episode review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your guys' thoughts were on episode 60 of Yugioh Sevens. Did you like the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not really like this episode at all? And let me know your thoughts on seeing iconic cards like Dark Magician Girl, Feral Imp, Baby Dragon. Just all your thoughts on seeing these classic cards, your thoughts on seeing the Psycho protagonist appearing as a cool little cameo, and just your overall thoughts on episode 60 down below. But guys, that is going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.